I'm thrilled to be talking about nature, climate, and finance. I'd like to give 7 trends that I saw just before and during COP, and then give 7 predictions. The first trend is that nature is finally part of the climate narrative. In 2019, for those of you who attended COP25, nature was widely viewed as the forgotten solution. There's a whole video about it. There's a whole push saying, what about nature as a climate solution? And fast forward to 2021, nature is front and center as an indispensable climate solution. And you can see that in the ways that people are talking about nature. If you Google nature positive between 2018 and 2019, you'll see a couple of dozen entries. If you Google it for 2020, 2021, you'll see hundreds and hundreds. That the discourse is changing. Second trend is that there's an increased appetite for nature protection. We see this in a number of fronts, with the Leaders' Pledge for Nature of over 93 countries committed to nature protection goals, the High Ambition Coalition, the Race is On, the global multi-stakeholder campaign on nature protection, and also UNDP's own Nature for Life Hub, where we had 750 speakers, including over 50 heads of state, and reached 750 million social media impressions. The third trend is there's an increasing commitment for forests. This has been coming in fits and starts, but really in Glasgow is the time where this agenda landed, with 141 countries covering 91% of forests globally, all agreeing to halt and reverse forest loss and land degradation by 2030. This is huge. And with that commitment is the fourth trend, which is increasing commitment for forest finance. So when you look through the declaration, you see numbers 5 and 6 as being about reaffirming financial commitments, including investment from public and private sources, and aligning financial flows, and especially accelerating the transition to a new economy that is resilient and that advances forests, sustainable land use, biodiversity, and climate goals. The fifth trend is that there's an increasing commitment to financing nature as a whole. We saw this through both before COP and at COP. So before COP, we saw world leaders pledge $5 billion in public and private funds for nature protection. We also saw the launch of the LEAF Coalition of lowering emissions by accelerating forest finance, which were able to mobilize $1 billion in financing. It's the largest ever public-private effort to protect tropical forests. And then at the COP itself, we saw $12 billion in public funds committed to protect and restore forests, with $7.2 billion in private investment. And we also saw, as part of the Race to Zero initiative, CEOs from 30 financial institutions with over 8.7 trillion in assets under management to commit to eliminate investment in activities linked to deforestation as part of their Race to Zero commitment. The sixth trend is this Race to Zero itself. This is a huge conglomeration, $130 trillion in assets under management, and they're urging financial institutions to sign on to the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero to do 2 things: to scale up positive nature finance and to eliminate nature harmful finance. Just as one example, when we look at the Capital for Climate, this is a new online investment platform that provides the first of its class guidance to help institutional investors identify and allocate capital for nature-related, nature-based solutions and nature investments. And the 7th trend is that there is increasing pressure for accountability. We see this as just 2 flashpoints here. The Finance for Biodiversity Pledges initiative includes 75 financial institutions that are worth about 12 trillion in assets, committed to protecting and restoring biodiversity through their activities, but more importantly, to assess their biodiversity impact, to set their targets and goals, and then to disclose progress on achieving those goals through their annual public reports before 2025. This is a game changer for financial institutions, and this is linked to the launch this year of the Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosures, the sister to the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. So 7 predictions for 2022. First, I believe there will be a continuation and even an acceleration of all 7 of these trends, especially for accountability and risk. If you're in the business of buying and selling or investing in anything, I think that the issue of nature-related accountability will become a huge issue. Secondly, I believe there will be increased pressure to implement existing commitments. I saw this in the chat and the questions, and I heard it from the comments. We have now enormous commitments to protect biodiversity, to restore biodiversity, and to finance biodiversity. But now we have an implementation gap. So what will 22 look like? My guess is that there will be pressure to implement and show implementation of these commitments. Third, I foresee many more public-private partnerships and blended finance. The biggest challenge we have right now is unlocking private sector finance for nature-related deals. And some of those guarantee finance holders, such as public agencies, are willing to step up. And the question is, how do we put together these new partnerships like the LEAF Coalition? Fourth, I predict more financial flows toward non-traditional finance actors. We saw a huge push for financing Indigenous peoples and local communities, and they're securing their rights to protect nature, as well as smallholder farmers and others to practice regenerative agriculture. These are not your traditional project managers. This is not where money typically flows. But as this idea becomes normalized, I believe that more financial flows will go toward these non-traditional financial actors who traditionally have been excluded. Fifth, I think there will be a range of new financial instruments. I think really the green bonds have been out there for a while. And when you talk about financing nature, people automatically jump to, oh, you mean green bonds. Okay, but I predict there will be new financial instruments. There really has to be. Sixth, I think there will be a breakthrough in filling the missing middle and in the pipeline of nature-related deals. This is the most pressing challenge. I know working with the colleagues at Jeffy, we've been talking about this for some 4 or even 5 years now. I foresee there will be a breakthrough in digital solutions, new partnerships that lower the cost of due diligence and make it easier to fill the missing middle of between 1 million and 25 million, or even scaling up to 100 million. And finally, the transformation in how, I foresee a transformation in how nature-related finance investments are viewed. Just as there was a wholesale transformation in viewing nature as a climate solution in the last 2 years, I foresee that perhaps, I hope, by the next COP, especially since next year has 3 COPs for the first time ever, that there will be a new idea that investing in nature is great for the planet, it's great for climate, and it's great for sustainable development. Graham, back over to you.